I'd like to solve the equation 9u equals 2u squared minus 5. So what you want to do as your first step is move all of the terms to the same side, but when you're deciding which direction to move them, we're ultimately going to factor to solve for these ones. So you're going to want your leading coefficient to be positive. 2u squared, 2 is going to be my leading coefficient, and it's already positive. So I'm going to subtract the 9u from both sides, and this is going to become 2u squared minus 9u minus 5 equal to 0. If this would have originally been negative 2u squared, I would have added 2u squared and then moved the 5 over. Now that I have everything on one side equal to 0 and my leading coefficient is positive, the way I factor is to draw big X as an organizational tool. Then you take the numbers on the outside and you multiply those together. So that is 2 multiplied by negative 5, which is negative 10. Then I take the number in the middle and shove it straight down. So negative 9 goes straight down. Next, I want to think of two numbers that multiply together to get negative 10, but when you add them, you get negative 9. Sometimes you think of those numbers right away, and sometimes you need to do a little bit of brainstorming. So to brainstorm, you take the absolute value of this number, so the absolute value of negative 10 is positive 10, and then you just jot down all the factors of 10. If the number is really large, like 300, then use your calculator to help you find all those pairs. Start off with the number 1 in itself, so in this case that would be 1 times 10. Then if I divide 10 by 2, I get 5, so I have 2 times 5. If I divide 10 by 3 or 4, I get decimals, so those ones don't work. Now that I have my pairs, these are the only numbers I could use to help me think of numbers that multiply to get negative 10 and add up to negative 9. Now, if the numbers multiply to get negative 10, you know that one of the numbers is positive and the other one's negative. But they're going to add up to negative 9, so if one of those numbers is positive and the other one's negative, that can only happen to add up to a negative for the bigger one to be the negative number. So which ones are going to help us get to 9? That's going to be 1 and 10. So I'm going to have negative 10 and positive 1. One more time, negative 10 times 1 is negative 10. Negative 10 plus 1 is negative 9. Okay, then the next step is you want to put these numbers you thought of over A. And A, in this case, is 2. So I'm going to put both of these numbers over 2. Then simplify. So the fraction negative 10 over positive 2 is negative 5 over 1. 1/2 doesn't simplify. I went ahead and just wrote it off to the side just to emphasize the fact that I took a look at it. Okay, but 1/2 is still 1/2. Now that we have our big X here completed, I'm ready to factor. The only way I get back to u squared is u times u. So the question is, what number comes before and after? The bottom number goes in the front and the top number goes in the back with this method. So I have a 1 there and a negative 5 there, bottom over top. So I'm gonna have a 2 there and a 1 there. Now that I've rewritten this addition subtraction problem here as a multiplication problem, I can use the zero property of multiplication. If two things multiply together to get 0, then one of those things is going to have to be 0. So I'm going to create two separate equations. Either the u minus 5 is 0 or the 2u plus 1 is 0. Solving each one of these to find out what number makes it 0. I'm going to add 5 to both sides and I get 5. In this one, I would need to subtract 1 and then divide by 2. So I end up with negative 1/2. The number 5 makes this 0. 0 times anything is 0. The number negative a half makes this one 0. Any number times 0 is 0. So these are my solutions to my original quadratic equation.